Hello everyone, welcome to JavaScript for Beginners. We are on the lesson 3 of the course, which is loops. In this lesson, we will cover while loops, do while loops, for loop. A loop is a control structure that allows you to run a block of code repeatedly until a condition is met. So you set up a condition and then you allow a block of code or a group of code to run until that condition is met. Loops are one of the most widely used concepts in JavaScript due to its relatability with our everyday operations. So why do we use loops? First, loops allows us to repeat operations without duplicating code. And it's very important that you keep your code short and ensure that you don't duplicate your code all over the place. Secondly, we can iterate over data such as users data or even lists. Loops also help us to repeat operations for a specific number of times. Loops is widely used for user input validation, and also loops help us to build patterns. So this could be a gaming logic, a payments logic, and others. So now let's dive deep into loops. We will start off with while loop. Now, what is a while loop? The while loop executes code as long as the condition is true. So first, a while loop is going to check the condition for each step of the code. And if the condition is true, the block of code runs and then check the condition again. With while loop, we have a condition which is being checked at the very beginning. And if this condition is true, the block of code inside the while loop will run and then comes back to the condition and check if it is true. If the condition is false initially, the code never runs. This is a basic structure of while loop. So we have the while keyword here, and then we have into brackets our condition. Then we use curly brackets. This is where we type in our block of code. Now let's look at an example. So now let's take a look at this example. Let's take a look at this example. We have a basic counter code. Let's take a look at this example. We have a basic counter program. Let's take a look at this example. We have a basic counter program right here. So, okay. Let's look at this example. Okay. In this example, we have a basic counter program over here. We created a new variable called count. Let's count equal 1. This is the variable that we are going to use to store the numbers as the count increases. Then we have our while loop code over here. We have the while keyword, and this is the condition count less than or equal to 10. And this is the code block. In the code block, we are going to display the count as a message in our console. So here we have console.log count is, and then we have the variable here. Remember, we have used template string here. So we use the $sign and curly brackets with a count variable. The next line is count plus plus. This is the same as count is equal to count plus 1. With the while loop code here, it first checks the condition, count less than or equal to 10. If the number stored in count is less than 10, then this code block is going to run. If it's more than 10, then the code stops running. So let's run the code and see what we get. In the terminal, you could see count is 1 down to count is 10. Now let's look at do while loop. The do while loop is similar to the while loop. The only difference is the do while loop executes the code block first before it checks the condition. And then if the condition is true, it runs again. So we have the basic structure of a do while loop. We have the do keyword with our curly braces, and here we type in our code block. The code block will be executed at least once before the condition is checked. Now let's look at an example. In this example, we have the same counter program that we used in our while loop. We have our do keyword, and then we have our code block. Console.log count is the variable count, and then we have our increment operator here, and then we have the while and its condition at the bottom. So let's run this code and see what happens. In the terminal, this is similar to the while loop that we did. We have count is 1 down to count is 5. So now let's change the number here to 10. So we have here let count equals 10. And in our while condition here, we are checking if the count is less than or equal to 5. So let's run this code and see what happens. In the terminal, you can see count is 10. This is because the do while loop ran this code block at least once before checking the condition. So here we had 10 less than or equal to 5, which is false, and then exited the loop. The for loop is one of the most common loops used in JavaScript. For the for loop, we have 3 optional expressions. So we have the begin, condition, and step. Then we have our curly braces, and we put our code block here. With the begin, this executes once upon entering the loop. So with begin, okay. So the begin, okay. So begin expression is being so the begin expression executes once before the So the begin expression executes once anytime we encounter this for loop. The condition expression, as we know, defines the condition for the condition expression, as we know, sets up the condition for executing this code block that we have in our curly braces. And then the step expression runs anytime the code block has been executed at each instance. So let's look at an example. In this example, we have a simple countdown timer for a rocket. We have the for keyword, the begin expression, which is let I equals 10. Then we have the condition, which check if the variable I is greater than 0. Then we have the step expression, which here we've used a decrement operator. So this simply means I equals I minus 1. We have our code block, which displays the number of I at a certain instance. Then we have the last message, which displays blast off. So let's run this code and see what happens. In the terminal, you could see a countdown from 10 down to 1, and then the message blast off. To end this lesson, let's look at how we can use for loop to build arrays. In this example, we are going to use for loop to generate 2 sets of arrays, with the first one having the numbers 0 to 99, and the second array having even numbers between 1 and 100. So let's go through the code. Here, we've created a new empty array, which is called num_arr. With the for loop here, we've used the begin expression, let I equals 0. We have the condition here, which checks if the number is less than 100. And in the step expression, we are using an increment operator. So this is the same as I equals I plus 1. In our code block, we are using the push array method, which adds new items at the end of the array. The second part of the array, we have created a new empty array called evens. And for the for loop here, we are using the begin expression, let I equals 2. We have our condition which checks if the number is less than 100, and with the step expression, I plus equals 2, which is the same as I is equal to I plus 2. The code block also uses the push array method, and to end it, we are going to display both arrays. So now let's run this code and see what we get. In the terminal, we can see 2 arrays created, with the first part having the numbers from 0 to 99, and the second array having even numbers between 1 and 100.